Hello there, and welcome to the Science of Magic show, where we talk about magic system stories, how they're built, why they work, and what we can learn both as the readers and writers. Each week we'll dive into the rules and the wonder behind the rules. So today we're actually talking about hard and magic systems. We're going to be talking about what those terms mean and why they matter to us both as readers and writers. Real quick disclaimer here, this show is both for readers and for writers, so whether you are looking forward to learning more about your favorite magic systems as we do those deep dives, or just wanting to learn more about how to craft magic systems for your own fictional universes and stories, you're both welcome to join us on this wild ride. And you can be both a reader and writer, and I encourage you, if you're a writer, to read broadly. So you're both welcome here if you're a reader or a writer. Let's quickly define these terms. Hard magic tends to be more strict, rule-driven. It has clear mechanics. Think Sanderson, his Mistborn series, his Stormlight Archive. Avatar bending is a harder magic system because it has more of those rules set in place in the audience's mind. So remember that audience's mind is super important here with this topic. Soft magic systems tend to be more mysterious. They're undefined, more about wonder than rules. Think Tolkien, Gandalf, or fairy tale magic. So readers tend to care because there is this demographic shift. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and listen to How to Write Stories That Men Enjoy, or something along the lines that Thomas Unset Jr. has over on his podcast, Novel Marketing, the longest running novel marketing show or podcast, which is run through Author Media, where he talks about how men actually tend to enjoy more at really anything systematized within fiction, whether that be hard mechanics of flight in sci-fi or in magic systems. So you're generally demographically going to appeal more to a male audience through hard magic systems, which is really interesting because when you appeal more to the male audience, you're actually more likely to appeal to the female audience as well, which is not the other way around. If you appeal to a female audience, you're less likely to appeal to a male audience in the broad spectrum, which is really interesting to me. But with soft magic systems, they inspire awe within the reader. Have that wonder of knowing that there's a tower over there that does this one thing that was mentioned briefly. You don't know how it does it, but it just builds this backdrop to the world that really is the iceberg. You're seeing this little tip, and everything below it seems to be built out. You can't quite tell how or understand why, but there must be mechanics behind it somehow. So it's surprising. It's mysterious. It feels like a myth that is somehow tangible and often brings a lot of value to your world. So really quickly, I would like to disclaim that this is actually more of a spectrum. So your hard magic system and your soft magic system are really just somewhere on this line here. So hard magic system would be really science. Science is magic to some degree. There's a principle called the Arthur C. Clarke principle, which is essentially, he said, and I might actually be paraphrasing this. I will probably, for the video version of this podcast, I'll be putting the actual quote on screen now. But he said that any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic. So really what we're talking about here is science and magic, at least hard magic, are really inseparable because they both follow rules. They both by following some rules, you're resulting in a common and definite result most of the time, depending on the premise of that argument, logical reasoning with that scientifically. And so soft magic systems have rules as well. We just don't show that to the reader. So a great example of this principle really is Galadriel and the mirror in, I believe, Fellowship of the Ring. So, and this is having to do with the reader perception, which we talked about earlier. So readers are the people experiencing the story, or viewers in that case. So anything that our character learns, the reader is also going to be learning. And sometimes we can have it the other way around. Something that the character does not know, the reader will know. But most of the time it's going to be what the character knows, your reader is going to know, instead of the reader knowing something that the character doesn't know, unless you're using a very specific omniscient narrator usually, or just a very broad third person foreshadowing the next chapter or something like that. So with Galadriel's mirror, we don't know how this mirror works. And we have some of the dialogue there in the book where is talking, not Bilbo, Frodo, Brandon is talking to Galadriel, and they're discussing why does it work, what's going on, you might call it magic, etc. And I will put these quotes up on the screen as well for your enjoyment, as well as the page in most of the standard editions of the Fellowship of the Ring. And one of the big things here is we're viewing this story through Frodo's eyes. He's one of our primary narrators through being a POV character. And so we're experiencing that, and I'm quite sure that Tolkien was building in his mind some sort of mechanics that the mirror had to operate on. It was allowing there to be a foresight of the probable futures. In the film edition, if the Fellowship did not stick together, what would happen? The travesties, the destruction, the fires. And in the eyes of Frodo, it was very wondrous because it was something that was not definite. He didn't know how it worked, etc. But in Galadriel's eyes, and this is where we get into the eyes of the viewer through the eyes of the character, she was quite sure of what she was doing. She knew if she did a certain process under certain terms and rules that it would result in the mirror being able to give Frodo a sight or a glimpse of the future. And so it is, in Galadriel's eyes, probably, if we saw the story through that lens, it would be a hard magic system because she would understand the rules, and us as the readers, through her, would most likely ascertain those rules through her going through that process or internally monologuing that. I would love to have an internal monologue of Galadriel. That would be epic. But through Frodo's POV, it's very wondrous because we don't know that. And the same thing goes for Gandalf. We could build an entire magic system that is very concrete and hard through his POV by trying to understand what he's doing when he's fighting the Balrog. But instead, Tolkien decided to do that through Frodo's eyes, which I think was a very wise choice because it leaves this mythic taste of wonder. And a lot of this can happen in the Cosmere as well. If we see Hoid using a magic system that is from a different book or series within the Cosmere, we are drawn towards trying to figure that out. And so there is this thing that I love and that I don't think there's enough talk about within the magic system community, which I think is a curiosity gap. And so we talked about that iceberg earlier. And let's just imagine that iceberg. The reader views about 10% of the actual iceberg. And the rest of that, the other 90%, is still under the waves. It's submerged. It's hidden. And the reader thinks that as all filled out. Sanderson talks about this in some of his lectures where when we do world building, when we do magic systems creation, not specifically, but yes, it can be specific. We are actually building a hollow iceberg. And yes, he knows that that would actually flip over and float, etc. But for the sake of this expression, we'll pretend that this iceberg doesn't simply flip over and float. So what we're doing when we give the reader the glimpse of the shadows beneath the waves, which would be this soft magic system, the side of the iceberg going down and down and down, these things that we do not understand, humanity is not naturally drawn. This is a curiosity gap. We want to understand what we do not understand. And so our brains create all these different things. The reader is actually now doing the work to try and figure it out, which is incredible because that makes it easier for us as the writers and as the creators. But it also gives the reader, it makes them more engaged because we all learn this in school. When we are actually doing things with our brains, our hands, etc., we are learning that material more thoroughly. We're being more engaged, more stimulated because we're being a part of it in essence. And so soft magic systems can be incredibly valuable and strong in that sense because we're drawing the readers further into the world. Now, another thing can also happen where with the the hard magic systems, the reader can also do the same thing, where they are drawn into figuring it out. Wait, this rule and this rule. Thus, the premise of these two things, these two premises, might lead, if these premises are true, to this conclusion. Basic logic, where they're trying to develop their own rules, their own understanding of these rules, to figure out really interesting things that the systems could do for fan fictions, for later things, to explain plot holes. No plot holes in fiction. That never happens to us as writers, right? And so hard and soft magic systems both have their very key, distinct differences, and they're both tools for making your story and world more interesting to the reader, having them engage more, and really deepening your characters as well, which we will look at actually in our next episode, which will be the importance of magic system in fantasy and soft sci-fi. Generally soft sci-fi, it can also be hard sci-fi, as we talked about, because hard magic systems, I love them so much. So, middle ground, really. Most stories actually use the mix, as we were talking about. Harry Potter, we have a lot of things that are soft, and it creates this really wondrous feeling. The wondrous world of Harry Potter, the world. Lots of rules, but plenty still left to the imagination of the reader. And so this is the story that most people tend to create, where it is a blend of these two things. I think Harry Potter balances it better than most stories, but so does things like, let's say, Wheel of Time, which is relatively hard. We have certain rules, like the Temps Real, etc. But others are left to the reader's discretion, understanding, and wonder, which is a beautiful part of stories. We come to stories oftentimes to wonder and to learn things that are outside of our own world, and magic systems are an incredible way to do this. It's something that other genres are totally missing out on, sometimes, in humble opinion. I am a little bit biased, though, as you can see from my book collection in the video version of this podcast. So the takeaway for you really is, think about why you enjoy a certain magic system. For me, why do I enjoy the magic system, let's say the Wheel of Time that I was just talking about? I enjoy it so much because it consumes the character. When he uses this, he's become mad to some extent. He's going to go mad. He's going to, gentled by the other, it's blanking my mind their actual names right now, and he lose that ability, and but it was not really spoilers, not too bad, but that's why it's so interesting, because this character tension, and he has to use it. It's addictive. He do not just for his own selfish addiction, or even because it kind of has him alive now that he's used it and tapped into it, but part of his role in the world is that he will probably have to use this to save the world. And so it's this tension between using it and not using it, becoming your full potential, letting the world die, or saving the world. And so that's really interesting to me. But what makes you love your favorite magic system? I would rather you decide the role of your magic system. What is it going to play in the story? Is it going to be the thing that drives your characters mad, that drives them apart, drives them from one another, defines the core conflict and themes? And really remember, it is a tool. It is your characters, and it can really build the atmosphere of your story in general. So let's wrap here. But next up, we're going to explore why it does that to your characters and how you can do that better, and really your favorite are doing to use magic system in tactical ways for their characters. Specifically, we will be looking at Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. So you have time, if you listen nonstop by the time this episode comes out, to The Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, for you to finish that book before this next episode comes out. So I just recommend you get onto Audible, or watch my video on Audible over on the YouTube channel, Xavier Schwint, or Daniel Update. Follow Scandal right now, but grab or something in that non-style June edition stuff updated on this 58 hour before we do our next episode. Don't worry, I won't spoil that much, but it came 2011. You've to read it. Podcast, give it a review. That really helps, and I'd love to hear your opinions, so feel free to reach out to Xavier Schwint Writes at gmail.com about any questions or requests you have concerning the podcast, and I'd love to connect with you. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep building great magic systems, keep consuming great content, and blessings.